Strategy in its simplest form is a organized way to win the competition. And so we often think about strategy being actions, activities, processes, and procedures. They're really designed to create what we would call a competitive advantage. In short, competitive advantage is how do you win? How are you going to be better than the competitors around you? I think it's important for sport organizations because ultimately that's what sport organizations care about. This is where sport organizations are uh, unique in that there may be lots of reasons why other organizations are around. You could think about a city, you could think about a not-for-profit that may not necessarily result in winning or being the best or coming in first place. Sport as an industry, sport as an area is ultimately about how do I beat my competitors. And so in order to beat your competitors, you need some type of a strategy. You need an organized approach that probably can't change second by second, minute by minute, because you're going to need to sort of create certain resources, create certain processes that will enable you to be successful in the next competition, but also successful over the long term. And so organizations, in this case, sport organizations that create consistent strategies that are successful end up being those sport organizations that we think of that have a legacy of winning. They don't win one year, but they win over multiple years. In some cases, win over decades. And so I think the seeing the fruits of a great strategy is probably even more pronounced in terms of sport organizations because every game is a competition about who's going to win. Every season is a competition about who's going to win. Organizations that come up with a better strategy do that better. I think there are two different levels of strategy for sport organizations. The first level is probably how do you get the resources to then actually win the game. And so if you think about a sport organization, I need coaches, I need trainers, I need probably people to help, attract the players. I need people to help attract the fans. All of those comes with different choices or different decisions. So your first strategic decision, if you will, if you're the owner of the team, if you're the general manager of the team, might be who's my coach? Because they're going to then set the strategy, the second level of strategy, of how we win the game. Maybe I'm a not-for-profit. Maybe I'm a university. I still have to understand what's my strategy in terms of how am I going to position this sport vis-a-vis the landscape of university. How do I position it in terms of we're always trying to win? Who do we play against? What do we care about in terms of our athletes, that they graduate? We care that they come in first place. We care that they're great student athletes, if you think about that term. That's the first level of strategy. And I think that's one that a lot of sport organizations don't think about because they're so consumed with the second level of strategy. How do I win the actual game? What are the plays we do? What are the player personnel decisions we make? But that's an easy one to make, right? That's one that we focus too much on. I think for purposes of sort of most organizations, that strategy level in terms of am I putting the right resources in place in order to give our resources a chance to win the game is probably where strategy becomes more important. And that scales all the way up from the local team to the league. And so if you think about leagues are all competing for viewership. I know in North America, hockey, football, and basketball all overlap. And so since all three of them overlap, different commissioners would have different strategies in terms of how to get visibility for their sport. Because if they can get visibility for that sport, that results in more resources in order to get better players, in order for the league to do better. So that's the strategic level that's often missed, that if we can get clear there, that gives us the ability, if you will, the freedom to then care about winning the game. I think understanding strategic planning and processes being useful for working in sport because you then have to understand how the pieces all fit together. Uh, I often think about when I work with my students that if you really, really care about the sport, you're probably going in the coaching room because then you'll be on the pitch, you'll be on the ice, you'll be on the field. Most of us that work in sport, we're caring about the strategy and the business side. We're either doing player decisions, we're doing travel decisions, we're doing promotion, marketing decisions. That's all strategy. That's all management. That's not necessarily game facing or thinking about, oh my God, do we have the right people on the court in order to win the game? We're thinking more in terms of what's our competitive advantage, how we're going to win as a sport.